Hello YouTube and welcome to the channel. Now then, in today's video we're going to be looking at this. It's possibly the cheapest RC that I've ever tried on this channel. There is a little bit of a caveat to that, but I'll get to that in a moment. But it's the Keleidi Toys 1/12 scale F-20 buggy basher. Now, if you're a regular to the channel, you know I'm a big fan of eBay, and at the moment, if you're in the UK anyway, if you go on eBay, the UK eBay is absolutely awash with this truck. It's a Johnny No Name brand, but I've got a sneaky feeling it's actually based on an XLF X03, X04. But at the moment, like I say, eBay is absolutely awash with them. Now, if you're a bit of a bargain hunter like myself, that can only be a good thing, because it means that all those sellers out there are dumping these things, trying desperate to get rid of them. So there's going to be some absolute bargains available. Now then, these things on eBay, on the UK eBay anyway, are going from between 40 quid, anywhere up to sort of 110, 120 pound, depending on the seller. And the prices don't follow any sort of logical pattern. Now, long story short, one of the sellers is selling these for 40 quid. Don't forget, it's a 1/12 scale truck. Selling this for 40 quid or make an offer. So I made an offer of 35 quid, which is approximately $42, and I won. So this is what I say. I think this is probably the cheapest truck I've ever tested on this channel. So on the box it says it's 4-wheel drive. It's 1/12 scale. It says it does 35 kilometers an hour, which is about 21 miles an hour. That is going to be debatable because this thing has only got a brushed 390 motor in it. I know that for a fact. So that it's probably not that accurate, but we're pretty much used to that anyway. 2.4 gig. It says it's waterproof to IP57, I believe, but again we'll have a look at that. Anyway, let's crack the box open and see what our cheap truck looks like. Right then, in the box we've got one instruction manual, and lo and behold, this thing is manufactured by Xinlehong Toy Factory, which to the uninitiated is basically XLF. Now, although there aren't any parts listed in this book, it does mean that because it's manufactured by XLF, XLF parts will fit. So from that standpoint, if you break one, at least you can be able to get bits for it. We've also got one battery charger, we've got one metal wheel wrench stroke spanner, some spare body clips, there's some spare screws in there. We've got our transmitter, which is basically an XLF one. I'm not a massive fan of these things. They do feel a bit plasticky and rubbish, although they do work quite well. The steering trim on it, and I believe it takes 3 AA batteries, which you have to supply. And last but not least, we've got the actual truck itself. Now, I'm going to be the first person to admit that this body shell design does look a little bit toy grade, and the weird thing is it's actually got 35 written on the side, which is precisely the amount of pounds I spent on it. It's an XLF chassis with XLF suspension, so basically, well, they're not even dampers really, they're just springs, aren't they? You can get XLF oil filled dampers as an upgrade for this. I can almost guarantee you that it will fit. What we'll do anyway is we'll whip the lid off and see what we get underneath. Incidentally, the picture does look as though you get bigger tyres than this. These are the smaller diameter versions that you sometimes get with them, but they do feel quite soft and compliant, and there are some foams in there as well. Right then, underneath we've got our 390 brushed motor with a great big red heat sink on it. This is mated to a ESC stroke receiver, and I think these are about 45 amps, so not super powerful. I mean, the whole thing's not going to be mega quick anyway. We've got a 5-wire steering servo, and we've also, interestingly, we've got a LiPo battery, because it does actually say lithium ion on the box. We've got a 1600 milliamp hour LiPo battery. I think what we're going to do with this thing is we're going to do the usual. We're going to tear this thing down and see what we get for our 35 quid. Right, the wheels are off, and we've got some metal wheel hexes. We've got some metal front hubs. They're all supported by ball races, by the way. Now, on the XLF, you would have got metal hubs at the rear as well. And also on this version, we've got plastic drive shafts as opposed to the metal ones that would be on the XLF version. But still got some metal work in there. We've also also got a little metal brace at the front there. I don't know if you can see it on the steering. But what we're going to do, carry on the tear down and see what the transmission's like. Right, that's the thing pretty much stripped down to its bare bones. Transmission wise, a centre drive shaft here is metal, and we've got metal T-pieces on the end. Interestingly enough, if this was the XLF version, those cups would be metal as well, but on this version they're plastic. Now the diffs and the gearbox, interestingly enough, are exactly the same. So these are exactly the same units as you get on the XLF X03, X04, etc. Inside these diffs is all metal gears. We've got a middle metal shaft there, a metal bevel gear, and a metal ring gear here. Now these gears on the older XLFs used to be metal, but now they're plastic, and they're basically identical units. I'm not going to open the front up, obviously, because it's going to be exactly the same as story as the front. Now, because of this thing's XLF heritage, it would make an excellent beginner's RC, because it would be really easy at some future point to upgrade it to brushless. Because this 390 brushed motor, although it's going to be fairly weedy, I would imagine, it wouldn't take much trouble to put a 2845 brushless motor in there, just like the brushless versions of the XLF. So this thing has loads of potential in the future to be upgraded. Anyway, that's enough waffle from me. What we really want to know is what this thing is like, so I'm going to go ahead now and try and put it all together, and we're going to try this, see what this 35 quid RC is actually like. Right, then we're outside with a bullcrap detector strapped to the back. The box says 35 kph, which is about 21 miles an hour. I don't think this thing's going to go anywhere near that. I think it's probably more like 13-14 mile an hour, to be honest, with that 390 in it. Anyway, let's give it a try. Right then, what have we got? 13.2 miles an hour, I believe that says. A little bit shy of 21 miles an hour, but that was almost a foregone conclusion, to be honest. I wasn't far off though, 13-14 miles an hour. That's pretty much on the nose. So that's a little bit disappointing, but to be honest, I thought it was going to be as much. Back inside, what do we think of the Keleidi F-20 here? Now, before we go any further, a quick confession from myself. I did actually pinch the tyres off this thing. I did replace them with an identical, slightly worn set, but I have nicked the tyre. I wanted to use these for another project, but the ones I've put on are identical, so they won't affect the performance. Right then, let's start with some good and bad points. Bad points first. The shocks on this are the typical XLF units, and they are incredibly bouncy. They really just bounce all over the place. I mean, there's no damping in them whatsoever. I can't even bring myself to call them shocks. You can, however, buy proper XLF oil-filled dampers, so it would be a really easy fix for this thing. The second bad point is again related to the fact that this is based on an XLF, and it's to do with the super sloppy steering. Now, XLFs suffer from this. It's because the servo saver is very weak and allows the wheels basically to turn quite a way. I mean, look at that before you even engage the servo, if you like. So there is loads of slop in that in that steering. On the XLF, on later XLF versions, I believe they put 2 different servo savers in, one of which was a lot stiffer, sort of goes some way to sort that out. But the steering on this thing, it's got the usual sloppy XLF steering. The next bad point is the fact that the box says this thing is waterproof. It is not. I think it's referring to the other Keleidi model, which is the amphibious truck that I've got. It says IP57. It isn't, basically. It's not waterproof at all. So if you do buy one, the box is incorrect. It's not waterproof. And last but not least, the fourth bad point is the fact that this thing only does 13 miles an hour as opposed to the 21 miles an hour or the 35 kph as stated on the box. To be honest though, with that little motor in it, it was never going to attain those sort of speeds, so really I am not at all surprised. Right then, that's enough negativity. Let's have some good points. The first of which is the battery life. You get a good 15-20 minutes runtime out of this thing on that little 1600 milliamp hour LiPo. So you get reasonable battery life. The next good thing about this thing is, although it's inherited some faults from the XLF on which it's based, you've also got XLF spares backup. So if something does go wrong, although it's not, it's a Johnny No Name brand, underneath it's an XLF, so you'll be able to get spares for it. The next thing I liked about this is the fact that Keleidi have not lied about the scale. They say it's 1/12. If you go and have a look at the XLF models, they quote 1/10, which they most certainly are not. So at least, a thumbs up to Keleidi there for being accurate, or reasonably accurate, with the scale of this thing. The fourth good point is the fact that nothing broke, nothing fell off. I give it a good thrash round, and for a little cheapy RC, it took the abuse quite well. They're fairly tough anyway, XLFs are, so you really shouldn't have an issue, especially with that motor, that little 390 brushed motor. It won't be putting a lot of strain on this transmission, so you should get a decent amount of life out of this. And last but not least, and the elephant in the room, the best thing about this thing is it costs 35 quid. So you can sort of forgive all the bad points, really. I mean, this thing is cheap as chips. It's probably one of the cheap. I don't know of any other 1/12 scale fully proportional basher buggies like this that would come anywhere near that price, 35 quid. I mean, it's probably not going to appeal to the hardcore RC enthusiast, but I tell you what, your kids would certainly appreciate it, and for 35 quid, you can give it to them and they could absolutely destroy it, and you really wouldn't be that bothered. Or if you're new to the hobby, you don't want to spend a lot of money and you want something you can upgrade in future, look no further, 35 quid. So, conclusion time, would I recommend the Keleidi F-20 to anyone? And the answer is, at that money, 35, 40 quid, at that money, yes I would. It's well worth it. It's not worth it at 80 to 120 quid, like some of the sellers on eBay, but for 35 quid, your quid's in, you cannot go wrong whatsoever. As ever, I'll leave some links in the description to where I got this from. I will apologise now to my foreign subscribers and viewers. This offer is probably very specific to the UK, so it's going to be quite regional. I mean, you could probably buy one and have it shipped abroad, but by the time you've paid all the postage, it probably isn't worth it. And as ever, if you've enjoyed the video and you found it of some use and interest, please give it a big thumbs up. And if you're feeling that way inclined, hit that subscribe button. It makes a massive difference to the channel. Once again, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you again very soon. Thank you.